next steps so that you can feel like you didn't just hear a bunch of stuff that I said, but rather you feel a little bit equipped to tangibly take your next steps. So post-pandemic ministry. What has the pandemic made possible? I mentioned this during my short plug for church planting already today. We need to stop lamenting what's been lost and focus on the opportunities that have been gained. There is a vacuum right now. There's, as much as we are struggling because so many people are not in the physical building right now, it is just empirically true that so many people have recognized their need for community, if not their need for a church service, but certainly their need for community. So many people are isolated. I did not throw up stats, but if you want to do that on your own, just Google mental health pandemic, and you will see that there's a whole lot of information out there about people struggling because of a lack of community. Anxiety's way up, mental health is way down because people desperately, desperately need community. And the church is uniquely positioned to offer that because Jesus' entire thing, his whole mission, his whole way of doing ministry, quite frankly, was about forming family on mission. So we have to start with a different framework. We have to reframe the entire idea. It's not what is no longer possible, therefore what do I have to react to? Instead, it's, man, what has God made possible through the pandemic that maybe wouldn't be possible before? Or maybe a better way of wording that than possible is, what might work now? Like what entry points do we have into people's lives that we may not have had before? So that's kind of the major key to everything I want to share today. That is the foundation on which I'm starting, is what has the pandemic made possible? So we begin with what has changed. These next several slides you may have seen if you were in my digital evangelism thing, but these are some really interesting stats. As churches have reopened, this is all denominations, all religions in America. On average, 35% of people are coming back to church live. 1 out of 3 people currently in a church found their church online before they ever visited it. And 78% of church visitors checked out the church, at least online, before visiting it. So 33% found it. 78% of those checked it out, watched your stuff before they came in person. Gray Matter research says that in the last 12 months, 17 million Americans who are not church attenders, so unchurched, largely unsaved people, 17 million of them visited a church website. 260 million Americans have a smartphone. The reason I bring up that stat is this: 260 million people are carrying the internet in their pocket. Carrie Nieuwhof says, everyone you want to reach is online, act like it. So here's point number 1 in a post-pandemic ministry. We have to innovate and invest digitally. We have to put our money where our mission field is. If you had the best, I don't know, Andy Stanley or somebody, if you had the best preacher, the best preaching in America at your church, and if you had Elevation or Bethel or some other worship team, you had the best worship team in America. And if Jeff Bezos went to your church and donated $20 billion and you had the best of everything and the best facilities, I mean, if you had the best everything, you would not be able to reach 260 million people on your campus in 100 lifetimes. Just wouldn't be possible. But you can literally today turn on Facebook Live or Instagram and point it at yourself and start talking. And in theory, 260 million people could see what you're saying. So we need to innovate and invest digitally. You need to put your money where your mission field is. Very, very quickly, digital best practices. There are, in English anyway, there are 2, Jen Rabbit and myself, and then I think also Nelson in Spanish. On the conference website, there's 3 presentations on how to do this, and they're all really good. But here are the tips that I took from that. Number one, get professional help. Most of us, maybe not you, most of us didn't go to school to know how to run church stuff on the internet, right? Most of us don't know that. So if you aren't an expert, pay someone. That's the investment. A very small investment, less than $1,000. Erin Lackey is phenomenal at this stuff. But again, please don't take advantage of her. Make sure you pay her. Ben Forsberg at Well Told is a buddy of mine. He's a church planter and assistant superintendent in our denomination who also owns Well Told, which is a brand management company. They'll give you 10% off. They're a little more, I mean, you're going to spend some money there, but they do everything for you. They do all your marketing and all your creating your forms, online platforms, paper everything. So get professional help. Number two, industry consultants report that video is 8 times more effective than text. So we need video or pictures, not text. So anything you do online, make sure it's video or pictures. Number 3, this will blow your mind. Quality matters, right? Online visitors make their decision about your church in 0.55 milliseconds. I read this on a research study. They were asking people how they pick. If people log on to your site within 0.5, just the way it looks, they'll immediately just go somewhere else if it looks dumb, or if it takes more than 3 seconds to load. So again, get professional help. People who do this for a living study this stuff. They understand the psychology of visuals. They understand how to make your page run faster, how to make your page visible to more people. That's Nucleus Church. They said that Nucleus Church research said that 96.2% of websites fail what they call the first impression test. And 96% of people said that the way it looks is more important than the content, which is goofy. Of course, we need good content, but they're never going to get to your content if they don't first decide to stick with your website. So again, get some help. Look at the things that are already posted on the conference website. Call Erin and hire her for a 2-hour consultation. Hire Well Told. Do something like that. Maximize your visitors. Again, if you get professional help, they will do this for you. But like 80% of people looking for a church are going to look at Google. And there are ways to make yourself appear on Google. Number 5, that's backwards. Number 5, make connection points obvious and intuitive. If someone values, let's say, preaching, then they hear about this church on the corner, then they find you on the internet, and they want to check out your preaching, okay? If they have to go to your website, click on I'm new, click on the watch tab, click on worship services, click on sermon series, click on sermons, pick a sermon, and then click play, it will not happen. They will have left. What you need is some very quick, very intuitive stuff. So right on your homepage, watch. Like we actually, because professionals told us to, we embedded our live player. So when our page pops up, right on the homepage, you can click and the most recent thing just starts. One click. So make it intuitive. That's for everything. If you have your music, if you have kid stuff, whatever content you have, make it obvious, make it intuitive. Number 6, humans like to see real humans. The industry standard says that 80% of your social media posting should be, social, meaning people, real people doing real things. So if you're going to post about a women's event at your church, don't post just, hey, we're having a women's event. Show a couple of women and put, hey, join us at our women's event. People are much more likely to do that. One other really great tip that's not on this slide, your online presence should always be an on-ramp, not a destination. And what I mean by that is your online content should always ultimately be about steering people into flesh, one-on-one, in-person human relationship. Humans need humans. You can't do your entire ministry online, even though it feels right now like you can. Eventually, people need real connection. So everything you do online should have some kind of prompt to, hey, want to get together, Do you want to join us in person? Would you like a personalized video chat? Something like that. So it's not all just a la carte video. Otherwise, you're competing with, Andy Stanley or whatever. You're competing with churches around the country. What you can't do that, by the way. No church in our conference has the ability to put up the quality online that some of the churches in the country do. But no one on the planet can do what you can do locally, which is you can love and invest in and meet and nurture and care for people in person by name. So make sure that everything you're doing digitally is just an on-ramp, not the end. Our goal is still to make disciples. It's not to get clicks and likes, okay? So we don't measure our success by how many people watch us on the internet. We measure it by people coming to faith, being discipled, and being multiplied into leaders. Here's another great tip post-pandemic that has changed. We need to make plans for like the month, not the millennium. I am, those of you who know me, have like worked with me, like Kevin or David, I am like Mr. Planner. I love to plan. I love to strategize. I love to think really far ahead and work backwards. And that's not unimportant right now. We should still have long-term plans. But because things are so fluid right now, because we don't know exactly yet the impact of the pandemic, we need to be willing to make plans thinking about like 3 months ahead instead of 3 or 5 years or 10 years. We need to be thinking, what can we try for the next 3 months? And then I'll talk in a little bit, much more detail about this concept, but plans need to be a little more fluid and a little more short-term. Doesn't mean they couldn't turn into long-term plans, but we should be focusing on a shorter term as opposed to a longer term. So church as we know it may not be over. I keep hearing this, like, the pandemic changed everything. Church will never be the same. We don't know that. We don't know that if in a year we're going to fall back into the same stuff. So make plans for this month, not the millennium. Next, innovate. Yes, please innovate, but don't eliminate. Balance newness with stability. People are really open to change right now, but they're also needing familiarity. So we have a unique opportunity to bring all the changes we always wanted to bring. We have this great window that I talked about to meet people at their point of need in regards to community. But at the same time, as we're innovating and as we're doing new, we don't want to completely eliminate those things that people consider to be most important. They often are not most important, like traditional church services, right? May not be the most important, but just good leadership here. People who are church goers, who do matter, by the way, we do want to innovate to reach more people, but we also need to not eliminate everything. Don't just wipe the board clean and say, we're just going to do everything new because we can. One of the things your people need, when I say they need community, but your long-standing members, they need to know that their church still exists, right? If they haven't been able to set foot on your campus in a year or whatever, they are longing for the sweet old connection. There's a balance here. I'm not saying don't innovate. I'm saying the opposite. Got to innovate, but don't just start from scratch and say, hey guys, it's post-pandemic. Everything's different. You will unnecessarily tick off and likely lose people that you should not be losing. You can trust me on this. I have innovated with elimination many times, and every time I've done it, I have looked back later and said, man, I should have paced that better, because some of the people I made mad that left are people that should still be partnering with us right now. So go ahead and innovate, but don't just eliminate everything. So balance newness with stability. Really important tip. So that's what's changed. Let me talk about what has not changed. We're going really fast. You guys, we're gonna be out here so quick. It's only 1:30. You're gonna love me. Brevity is another one of my big points here today. What has not changed, okay? So that's what's changed. Here's what's not changed. Humans, whoa, what's going on? Humans are made to exist in community. God himself chooses to exist in community. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. God made man and he said it's not good for him to be alone, so he made woman, and he said, make a family. Jesus came, started his earthly ministry. First thing he did was call out a family on mission. We are created for community. And post-pandemic, it is crucial that the church provides healthy biblical community. We are absolutely made to exist in community. And I might also add, the church is uniquely positioned to offer genuine community because only the church has Christ. Only the church has the Holy Spirit, which can create community way beyond what anybody else could do. So we're made to exist in community. Here are some quick community keys. If you want resources, by the way, there's just a million great resources for this, but holistic biblical community is an intentional thing. Do not believe, if you do, stop believing that community will just happen if you just keep doing church, that it will happen on its own. It will not. What will happen if you're not intentional is we'll keep pouring into the communities we're already a part of, and anybody on the outside of that looking in will never feel like they're a part, which means they'll never join you on mission, which means you become more and more separated from people outside the church until you don't know anybody outside the church, and then you're in big trouble. Biblical community means doing life together. It doesn't mean we show up Sundays and Wednesday nights to do church. That's a piece of it. Biblical community is about life together. It's about hanging out outside of the church. It's about texting. It's about birthday parties and going to your friend's kid's soccer game. It's about helping each other move and holding each other's hands when your spouse is sick. It's about going to the hospital and visiting when your parents die. Biblical community is family. Doing life together. Fellowship is an end as well as a means. So many pastors and leaders mess this up, okay? Fellowship, I struggle with this because I'm a planner and I'm results oriented. Fellowship or community is not just a way to get to the thing you want to get to, right? Like if I can make these people all like each other, then they might do this, which will help me accomplish this. That's using fellowship or community as a means. Biblically speaking, fellowship can also be an end. What that means is you can plan a get together to hang out together without the Bible or a Bible study, without any worship music and without any teaching, and it still can be biblical community. If you never do those things, it's not biblical community. But it is okay to just party together on occasion just to be together. So fellowship is an end as well as a means. So don't fall into this trap of thinking that fellowship or biblical community has to be this super structured thing with a lesson and an icebreaker and prayer and a message, right? And some worship. It doesn't, right? That's a worship gathering or a Bible study or a prayer night. Fellowship can be an end as well as a mean. Biblical community is diverse. As you start to form community, or as you have done this, if everyone in your group looks like you, talks like you, earns money like you, probably don't have very good biblical community. Should be diverse. Diverse means diverse. It doesn't mean racially diverse, doesn't mean financially diverse, it doesn't mean age diverse. It means all of those things. So we need to be providing biblical community that is diverse. Lastly, and there are other, these are just things I came up with quickly. Of course, there are more, but biblical community is learned. Even if you try to do everything right, people aren't going to just intuitively get it. You need to make sure that your leaders, your pastors, whoever are teaching somewhere in some context, teaching the gospel and the New Testament particularly, but really the entire Bible, that they're teaching about community. It's something we have to teach people to know how to do. It is learned. How we love each other, the one another's of Scripture. It's a learned thing. So make sure that somewhere in the context of your ministry, community is being learned. The best way to do that is to put people in intentional community, leaders or whoever, influencers, and just begin to walk them through it. I'm currently taking leaders through a Tangible Kingdom Primer, which is a great way to do that. There are so many good resources. If you want to know what they are, you can hit me up or ask your pastor. Kevin David, Jennifer, yeah, everybody on this call that's a pastor that I can see. I can't see everybody, but those people are all really good at community, so they can help you. But just, it's learned, okay? It's not something that's going to happen by accident. Right, Kevin? That's right. Kevin was not yawning, guys. He was saying amen when he went like, that was not a yawn. That was Kevin going, heck yeah. He knows. Next, what has changed? Authenticity is a bull market. I think bull market's the one where everything's high and going up, right? My portfolio's, I don't know. So here's the deal, man. Many people have realized they don't miss or need the flash of a church service or even a church service at all. But so put simplicity at the core of what you do. Authenticity and simplicity are kind of linked. It is easier to get to what is authentic if we're more simple. It doesn't mean, please don't hear me saying a attractional model is terrible, although it is. It doesn't mean that we don't strive for excellence in what we do. Of course we do. But listen, as people have gone online only for a lot of church stuff, again, that means you're now competing with people who are really good at it. You're talking about people who pay people full-time to do this, people who have 1 million followers because this is what they do so well, who have professional worship teams. You are competing with other churches for the online experience. But I say again, as I did earlier, one thing you can offer that nobody else can offer is authenticity in your community. So you can speak to your local community, whereas somebody in New York talking on the internet cannot. You can speak to your local community, local issues. You can provide local opportunities. And I put in the word simplicity there because when I thought about, well, how would I tell people if they ask me, well, how do I be more authentic? Which is a funny question to begin with. The answer is get more simple. So here's a way to assess and adjust. I think authenticity is best communicated through, that's a typo there, not though, through simplicity. So start here. And again, if you're not the key leader, talk to your leaders about this, okay? Simplify your aesthetic. Building, the way things look. It doesn't mean put less effort into it. It just means make it less busy, make it more simple. There's an air of authenticity to things that are simple. Consider simplifying your worship. You can have all kinds of exciting things going on during worship. I'm talking about music right now, worship music, and still be authentic. But one of the best ways for authenticity to come through is just to bring it down a little bit. Change the lighting, go acoustic, simple black and white words. You can talk about that on your own, what that might look like, but just be simple. Simplify your preaching. Again, we're in a unique time where a lot of unchurched people are listening, either online or in person. So those who are preaching and teaching need to be especially aware of who they're talking to. Simplify groups. Simplify your systems. And then the most important one, I think, is to simplify what I call on-ramps and next steps. Make it easy for people to get to the next place. If they're listening online, make it easy for them to click something that says, hey, I'd like to talk to a pastor, or I'd like to know more about your church, or I'd like to join a group. If people are feeling like they want to start serving somewhere in ministry, make it easy to figure out how that's done. If people want to be trained in leadership, or if they want to be baptized, or if they want to learn the Bible, we need to make these things more simple, not less, not watered down, just a more simple process to allow people to get to the next place. So when I say assess, I don't know how well you can read the bottom of the screen there, but you assess by asking questions like, how easy would it be for an unchurched visitor to grasp this? So apply just that one question even to each of those. What would an unchurched person who's never been in a church think of our aesthetic? Would it make sense to them? Would they know what that thing we have a picture of is? When they see that painting of a dove above our cross, do they know what that is? How engaging and how easy is it for people to engage with our worship? Would they grasp this? Are we using concepts that are too impossible? And if so, how can we better explain those so that people know what's happening? Are they even going to understand why we sing? Or do we need, this is what I mean by simple. You can just add a statement every week. Hey, we're going to sing some songs. This is why we sing in church, and this is how we sing in church. Same with preaching. Man, are my concepts in the wrong spot? Simplifying groups, simplifying systems. So assess, ask questions, make adjustments. So that's what's changed and what has not changed. I want to talk now before we break into groups. What will never change? Praise the Lord. There are some things that will never change. Jesus said, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and Son and Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you, and surely I'm with you always to the very ends of the age. That has not changed. The mission of the church has not changed. Jesus himself, God the Father, God the Spirit, have not changed. People, fundamentally, no matter what you think, have not changed. People are still people, created in the image of God with a longing for him and a longing for community. So we need to make sure forever we are keeping mission ahead of method. Just because we're talking about post-pandemic ministry, and just because there are some things that are changing and some new methods for how to accomplish our mission, doesn't mean that those things become our mission. It is really easy to fall into the same traps again. Many people fall into, let's say, what they call the attractional model trap, which is we want to reach as many people as possible. And we know that a really awesome worship service will help us do that. But if you're not careful, you end up putting all your effort into that service and how many people show up instead of into the real mission, which is to make disciples. You can fall into the missional thing, ironically enough, at the expense of this too. We're all about depth and we're all about serving our community. And you can fall so far into that you forget the goal is to multiply missional people, not just to keep pouring into the same 12. So mission has to be kept ahead of method always. Always keep mission ahead of method. That will never change. This will also never change. You need a discipleship plan in place. I hate saying this, but it's a little bit true. It doesn't matter that much what your discipleship system is. You just need to have one. You need to live it out. You need to work it. If you have no clue what I'm talking about, ask your pastor. If they have no clue, call me. I'll give them some tips. But you need a system. You need a program, a place for people to be discipled. It's all about relationship. So I hesitate with the word system, but it really is good to have a system. Jesus had a system. I'm going to call people out. I'm going to train them. They're going to watch me. Then they're going to help me. Then I'm going to watch them. Then I'm going to help them. Then I'm going to send them out. Then they're going to come back and we're going to critique. He had a system, if you read the Gospels, for how he trained his disciples and how he used them to multiply others. And you see that same plan or system implemented in the book of Acts and throughout the New Testament. Same exact thing. It's about discipleship. So you need to have a plan in place. Again, people across the country watching on the internet or providing stuff on the internet can't disciple your people. No one can be discipled on the internet. I know that we think they can. You can grow in knowledge on the internet, and because you're growing in knowledge through prayer, God can change you and grow you. But discipleship is about mentoring. It's about becoming like Christ by following someone who's following Christ, and you can't really do that. And when I say on the internet, I mean with one-way communication on the internet through a la carte video. Zoom calls and stuff, you probably could, but you need to have a discipleship plan in place. So, my goodness, it's 1:40 and I'm already done. I'm amazing. I'm so quick. Hey, we're going to talk about next steps and some really tangible things. But before we do that, I'm going to go back to the start really fast and go over this again really, really fast. And then I'm going to ask Immaculate, do you know how to break people randomly into groups?
Yes, I do.
So after that, let's break into groups for 10 minutes. and let's talk about these things and come back with a question or two or a pushback or a discussion. I don't know everything. It'd be great to get some feedback. So what's been made possible? Innovate and invest digitally. Make plans short term, not for the millennium. Innovate, but do not destroy everything and eliminate. Humans are made for community, so we need to be able to do community better. In everything we do, there needs to be a community aspect. We do that by being authentic through simplicity in everything we're doing with assessment. And we continue to put mission ahead of method, and we continue to develop a discipleship plan. So hopefully none of that's new information to you. Most post-pandemic ministry is not new, right? There's nothing new under the sun. Ministry is ministry. So I'm going to ask Immaculate to break us into groups. It's 1:40. So we'll come back at 1:50, do 10 minutes of Q&A and next steps. And then you guys can go after 1 hour. Aren't you blessed? Only have to stay for an hour instead of 90 minutes. It's fantastic. Okay, Immaculate, kick us out.
Yes, I am forming the groups right now.
Thank you.
Second. Oh,
We're going to clap for Immaculate. There you go. Wait a minute. Hold on. What's happening there? Jen has a robotic arm. What happened?
What happened?
What happened?
What happened?
Hey, Jen, what happened to your wrist? Did you break your wrist? Hey, you're muted.
I can't see myself. I don't know. I think it's just I have my sweatshirt.
Oh my gosh, it looked like a brace.
That's so funny.
Oh. Okay, good. I'm glad. Cool. I can't see myself either. I don't even know if I'm even showing. Do I have to stop sharing my screen, Immaculate, for that to work? Oh, there we go. Okay, so
go.
And you'll go to a random room and you'll chat.
Upside down. David, why are you upside down? Okay, there you go.
I don't know why. I did not touch anything.
Yeah, upside down. Yeah, you did.
That's funny.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, thank you for the idea on the book. I'm just looking for a simple. Well, I mean, the cohort we're doing is like weeks long. It's like 10 weeks, and so we have to spend Saturdays. So if we're following that plan, it's going to take a while. But I mean, it's just rebuilding. It's going to take a year to unpack this, create a new vision, create, discipleship groups. It's just hard to wait. It's hard to, be patient. And it's hard to ask your people to read too many books, Like, I feel like I can only ask them to read like one book a year. So anyways.
Hi, Chris. We are back.
Is everybody back now? Thanks, Immaculate.
Yes.
Awesome,
We only
Chris.
one person. One person is missing. Who is that person?
My group's here.
Your entire group is here. Gwen, is your group here? That's one person. I hope the person.
Yes, our group is all here, present and accounted
Okay.
for.
Okay, everybody's accounted for.
I
Okay.
lost somebody. I don't know. It's okay.
Okay.
So does each group have like maybe one thing you want to share with the whole group, or clarification or pushback or thought, or something we can all unpack together? Anybody? I don't know what the groups were, so you'll have to just jump in, volunteer, or else I'll call on people. There it is. There it is.
I think one of the things with our group was
You just muted yourself again.
I don't know what I'm doing. I might be young, but technology is not my friend. But one of the things that came up in our group was with the disciple making was I think this was a thing, was outside of just the strategy on how to disciple, as we're going in with people who've we've kind of switched, like you were actually saying before, was through online presence, we kind of switched from discipleship making and that to more teaching and learning, and how to kind of just revamp disciple making, how to bring that to our people. I think that was something that was kind of being said in our group, is like, how do you reinstall that into the DNA of the leadership within our churches?
Good question. I guess I have an interesting perspective, because we were here for I think 8 months before the pandemic hit, and so we were in the on-ramping, assessing, getting to know what's going on, vision, prayer, planning, schematic, assessment. Literally, no exaggeration, our timeline calendar was like, Easter was like a pinnacle thing for when we were starting to roll everything out. And then like 2 weeks before that, it was like, oh yeah, you can't see people in person. So your question's interesting. My point in bringing it up is I didn't even get to experience what it was here before you know what I mean? So for me, it's easy because it's like, I'm just starting again. But I think top of my head, and everybody else can answer, my response to that, David, would be just do what you've always done well and just do it again. So you might have to pull in strategically through prayer, influencers and leaders, and just start again and model it. But it's going to take, you got to be patient, because I don't think it's starting from scratch, obviously. But I think what you were talking about, and what I would caution against, is going, hey, we can meet again. Let me call my 12 really good leaders, have them all recruit people for small groups and start discipling again. Maybe they need a refresher. Maybe they need 9 months in meetings with you. Like maybe we need to go back instead of just deploying everybody. Maybe we need to go back and re-engage and say, okay, I'm going to personally sit down and disciple these people again for however long it is. maybe it's 3 months. I mean, you could probably gauge it by how well they, and again, that's a feel thing, right? Because in some places you're going to be able to re-engage really well. But if people are out of practice, I mean, hopefully they didn't lose their passion, but that could happen too. People could have realized, oh yeah, it's nice not having people in my house 3 nights a week, or, So is that what you were asking? Like, how do we restart?
Yeah, no. And I like that a lot, because one of the things that I was really thinking is like, there's a good chance that us as pastoral leaders are going to be either have a very minimal group that is ready to just go back and make disciples out. And from what you're saying, it's encouraging, because it's like, well, it's okay if right now you're the one that is making the disciples, and you have to redisciple your leadership kind of in a way, to disciple others, like kind of go back through that refresher was the word you used, I believe. And I really like that. That's encouraging.
I'll tell you another factor. So one of the things when we started talking about imagining what was possible and being more positive, one of the bonuses for us, and to be similar for Jen, who's on very similar timeline, right? And for Immaculate, who's back at Oasis, but wasn't there for years. So one of the things that was helpful for us was when you're new as a leader, people are generally revealing themselves to you, the parts that they want to reveal. So you don't have as much information about people as you think you have. And just because they were in a position of leadership doesn't mean they should be, or that they meant with your vision because you're new or whatever. So one of the things that's happened to us over the last 10 months is we relaunched our discipling core refresher, right? We launched that about 7 weeks ago, I guess. Yeah, 7. And I was able, the people that I was going to include 10 months ago, there were several I didn't include, because I think that this pandemic has sort of unveiled the DNA of individuals, right? Like if people can't make it if their entire life fell apart because they can't show up on Sunday, then they're probably not really productive disciple makers anyway, if that makes sense, right? So there's kind of a little bit of a silver lining too to this. I don't mean that like as a sweeping statement that anybody who has trouble. I'm just saying there are people where it's like, oh my goodness, it turns out you're not quite as grounded as we thought you were when we came here, because you should not be in this place if you're a mature disciple maker. So anybody else have a thought on that? Like, that's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Anybody else that knows what they're talking about? How to re-engage? Hey, Kevin, what do you think about that? You guys had just launched and were just starting to roll with your plant. And now do you feel like you're starting over in some ways with people when they can gather, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's crazy. We had a core group that was ready to go. They were so excited. And then when the pandemic hit, one of them worked in pharmaceutical companies. And so they had to isolate completely different. The other one was he worked traveling all the time. So it just totally messed up they never could leave the house, because every time he came back, he had to isolate. Then he'd leave again, come back, isolate. She had to isolate because he's had to isolate. So that was one family. The other family, the relationship broke up. So he's in a different place. And so it wasn't just the pandemic, it was just like different things that's happened to different families through it. And so our core that we were going to start with, they completely disappeared. And so it's like, okay, now what? So what we ended up doing instead was we ended up just going to each house individually and just creating a different type of presence there, and just staying in connection with the schools, keep doing the video, staying connected with people in video. And we have a new plan. We're going to try to turn the garage into like a little fitness area, and just open it up to people in the neighborhood to come through. And it's just to see where it goes. That's where we're starting from. And that's supposed to be happening sometime in March.
Do you have somebody who's like fit that could help them?
We got connected with different people in the, we have even there's different people with different gyms in the neighborhood.
Oh, really?
They
That's
all,
cool.
yeah, all of them have these different things. Like
You don't need me and David to teach you about how to work out or anything.
I can use all the help I can get if you if y'all willing to help. No, yeah, that's what we've been finding out is that a lot of people actually do it, but they don't open it up to nobody.
Because gyms are closed, yeah, like public
Yeah.
gyms. It's a
Yeah.
great idea. Great idea.
So that's where we're starting, but it's definitely a start over. But it's also just forcing you to do different things, find new opportunities. So we're not discouraged by it. It's just kind of like, okay, there's always something else we could do. So let's just do that something else.
Yeah. That's good. I know 6 months ago you weren't in that place. I mean, you were pretty discouraged. So good. What about the other groups? Anything stand out? Anything for discussion? Any pushback or better ideas or wisdom or comments?
In our group, we just we discussed kind of how to build community and do lifestyle evangelism when people are distanced and how that might look like. And so we discussed, Kevin shared with us several ways that he's kind of been reaching out, and shared what Mike does around our community, and just would be interested to hear anyone else's ideas on how they're reaching out during a pandemic and what that might look like afterward.
Actually, Chris, that was one of the questions we had. Say somebody or rather Bud sent a question saying, what suggestion does Chris have for growing community that is connecting via small groups?
Yeah. Well, technically, the name of this is post-pandemic, so that wouldn't be an issue. But I know what you're talking about. Like, there's this, all seriousness, there's like this gray period where we're sort of going to start coming out of it, but people are going to have their own, like, in the language of like vision casting. I don't know if you guys are familiar. It's like early adopters, mid adopters, late adopters. You know, how quickly do people come on board with the idea? And I think coming out of the pandemic, we're going to see something similar where there are people now like that have had the shot and are like, we're all good. Everything's good. Pandemic over. And there are other people who are kind of going to be like, I'm not coming back till the governor says we can, plus 6 months. You know what I mean? Like there's these varied things. So I think you have to start where you can start. So we started gathering in person with our missional corps. So I invited 24 of them and I put in the email. I said, hey, listen, here's how we're going to do it so we can be safe. Some of you, and then I talked to I invited them all and I followed up with individual calls. And some of them I said, you should not be a part of this one. You have health issues, you know, whatever. But I think you can find like, so we ended up having several people that work at the hospital, or like we ended up having a group that had all already been vaccinated. Like it just worked out that there was a group that we could gather with, and there's I think 14 of us. So we're still pretty safe with how we gather. But so I know this is a lame answer because it's not real specific, but I think the answer is just do what you can do. And if you have to do it via Zoom, that's doable. It's not as effective as in person because you lose so much, like, I don't know, body language or something, communication, you just lose a lot. But you can do it on Zoom. You could say, hey, we're going to gather a couple times a week on Zoom, once for like hardcore discipling information, once for a check-in on our week, and once just to hang out, do a watch party on Facebook, watch a movie and chat. Or Corlitas did a thing where they did coffee. So there are all these women on the screen talking about Jesus and drinking coffee. So again, you have to be creative, and it's part of why I said you have to innovate short term. But I think as you can and as you're comfortable, of course, you can launch in person as long as it's, you know, it's safe and it's small and it's people who are, I would never shame somebody into doing it, of course. But if you have the opportunity, and again, that's very, by the way, geographic. I know in San Jose, when we were talking on our plant call a while back, to gather in person there, people think you're the devil. Like, how dare you? You're a murderer. Where we live, oh my goodness, we have most of our, like 80% of our churches never closed ever during this whole thing. It was nuts. And we were like, what are you thinking? But most of our communities like, we don't care. So doesn't mean we shouldn't care. I'm just saying some of it's contextual. But I would say Zoom, I would say the key is just got to be two-way. It can't be just watch this or listen to this or read this. It has to be, how can we interact in community? Even if it's 5 people, you can start to develop community. And then really tangibly, like during your live feed, have somebody who's spiritually mature on YouTube or Facebook, have somebody commenting and going back and forth so there's live interaction. That creates some community. Highlight individuals, talk about real stories of real people, talk about your local community, bring up real people in your setting. That's what I meant by making everything about community. Even if we can't yet live in community quite the same way, we can still make everything we do more about community, if that makes sense. So just to engage and make everything interactive. So if it's an online platform, but hey, click here to make your comment, click here to upload a video of how you're doing. Do a Facebook post with a question like, hey, I know you all saw the sermon. Here was a question Pastor Chris shared about a time that he was not perseverant in prayer. Can you ever share about a struggle? If you'd like to, upload yourself, 30 seconds. It just creates some level of connection. It's not quite the real thing, but at least you're inching toward it. If that makes sense. I don't know if that's helpful. Usually I talk enough, something makes sense, but it's kind of how I roll. Anyway, that was my thought. I don't know, anybody have a better idea how we can do community right now? It's pretty hard.
I just want to add, our youth within, we've been in Oasis now for the past 2 months, almost 2 months from January 1st. Our youth just grew from 4 to 17.
Oh, nice.
Playing games online. In fact, having competitions online. And so they meet once a week and then they create competitions. And so the youth are very excited inviting their friends, And so as of yesterday, they had a competition yesterday online and they brought their friends or their cousins and it was really huge, So especially when it comes to, all these virtual interactions, the youth are great in that. Now, for the adults, it's great to have, like Chris, you said, have meetings via Zoom, especially for the elderly who cannot come together right now. If you're in an area where people are afraid to come together, create things online. Create, maybe conference calls, meet together online if you cannot meet in person. We are having a blast. The women, we gather together via Zoom and we are telling stories. People are having, like you said, watch parties of movies. We just come, let's watch movies together, and we're online watching movies together. And people are very, very much interested in it because they are tired of staying at home alone. They are bored, and so people are looking for what to do. And the next big thing is online until we are able to get back to church.
Yeah. And of course you can do outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
We've done like every 6 or 8 weeks, we've done a thing where we dropped off a bag at every house, which is a lot of work, takes a lot of help, but we dropped off like goodie bags with like content and stuff they can do and interact with. And I don't know. I think Turlock did some, I don't know, recently. I know you guys did the prayer thing and you did the outdoor gathering, the food pantry, I think. So lots of creative things around the conference going on. Really cool stuff. And maybe we're coming at it. We'll see. That's the thing, is tomorrow they could be like, oh no, super COVID. Everybody back to your house. I mean,
oh, please no.
I'm just saying. It could happen. So,
counting on this vaccine.
Yes, me too. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I feel like I think we're gonna be in the red soon. Are you guys in the red? So I don't know. It's a struggle. We're back. But we do so Jeremy, I preach without a mask on and right. I make sure that I'm back a ways.
Right.
But I know people are like, can we have the worship team not wear a mask? And can we put the words up on the screen? And I feel pulled between making everybody happy and so we have a pretty big mix. I mean, here, we have some that won't come because they don't think we should be meeting in person. And then we have some that are, well, if they don't want to come, they don't have to come. So,
Yeah, that's the hardest thing about all of it by far.
yeah.
I will tell you something that was productive for us that I fell into by accident. I decided to gather all my leaders in person like a few months ago. It's like 24 of them. So we had, masks, lots of space. Some of them were zoomed in, some of them were in person. And the point was to talk about, hey, what are we going to do right now? Pandemic's dragging on. We can't meet. What do you want to do? I wish this had been intentional, but it ended up being. So I'm telling you now, you could do it intentionally. I ended up asking them all to share. I said, just really safe space. Nothing that's shared here is shared outside of here. No one's going to judge anybody. No one's going to comment. Just tell me personally how you're feeling about all of it. So we had people who said for the first time out loud, I think it's all lame. I think we're not being godly because we're not meeting. And other people who said, I can't believe that people, and it was this really spiritual, weird thing. I only did it because I wanted to just get an idea so I could see the consensus. And I was so nervous about ticking people off. But it was so, afterward, they were all like, it was so freeing to be able to just say out loud without being judged where I stand on it. Because for some strange, weird reason, it also got tied to the political thing where Republicans thought we should meet and Democrats thought we shouldn't. I have no clue.
Yeah, it's very political.
And which I don't get. I don't understand why it's like, what does that have to do with politics? But and so everybody was on eggshells, and there was really, you could do it via Zoom, but I would highly recommend gather your leaders and go, hey, we just want to share together. There's no agenda. Just tell me how you're feeling. We're not going to make a decision tonight. We just need to be able to share. And that created it was this huge exhale for everybody. And then I followed it up by email and going, okay, look, here's where we're at. And then we went from there. But it was, again, I wish I had done it on purpose, but it was really freeing. Because so many people, I didn't know where they stood. They were just scared to say anything and be judged, either side. So, and they didn't know where I stood because I've been very careful not to make a declarative statement, So we didn't do that with politics, just with COVID, but politics would be a whole nother, don't do that. Don't ever do that. Anyway, is there anything else? Any other questions that came out? I have one last slide, if not. By the way, Superintendent Mark, I don't know if it's on the internet or not. It might be. But his first or second year here at family camp, he did a teaching on Christians and politics. It's the only thing I've ever heard in my life that made sense. It was awesome. I stole all of it. So if you're nervous about that, ask him for it. It was incredibly incredible.
Hey, so I've a question. You were talking about discipleship. And our group, we were talking about getting that launched again, and sort of it feels like it's not fallen by the wayside. It just has been hard to do during pandemic. And so I have ordered already the books that Immaculate mentioned. But I just was curious. I know that you were before into 3DM. Do you have any other recommendations? I'm not a huge fan of 3DM. I get lost with all those shapes, and I really want something more simple. So I like this idea of Sticky Church. I'm like,
Sticky Church is good. Sticky Church is good. Tangible Kingdom by Hugh Halter and Matt Smay is excellent.
I have that book. I'm not sure I read it all the way through.
There's actually I'm using it again right now. In my context, it'd be different in yours maybe. But I was dealing with biblically literate, long time, 50 plus years old, long time members who were sort of just awesome people, but not they weren't getting the hands part very well. And for that, Tangible Kingdom Primer is an 8-week missional community primer. It's awesome. So that would be a good one. Sticky Teams is also excellent. Really excellent. But I also stand by my statement. content's really important, but mostly it's just having some plan and just do, it's kind of like a workout. Like you can do P90X or you can do whatever they are. It's the one with the bald lady screaming. I don't know. If you do any workout program, if you do it an hour a day, every day, it will work, right? So I wouldn't get too stuck, but all of those are excellent. Yeah, I think sticking teams is really good. And I don't think anybody trying to think of who in our conference has done a lot of that. Not anybody, I think.
They're using it right now.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's done it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
community church planting, the Bruce Bennett stuff. Even if you're not church planting, the seven commands of Jesus, that stuff's good too. What I like about that is you learn the command and then they have to go do it before you move on to the next one. So, I mean, it's hard, but I like that one.
And we were invited to be a part of a cohort by a guy named Will Mancini.
Okay.
And we're kind of into something called Future Church. But one thing he really talks about is cutting back on programming. And so I do feel like if there's one thing the pandemic has done for us, it's cut back on programming.
Absolutely.
But now what we need to start back on is really, really intentional discipleship and really intentional small groups, not where people are spread thin doing all kinds of different things. But so I just really want to be intentional this year about, how we do discipleship and
Yeah, check out the primer. I've got a bunch. I'll send you one to look through. It's really good, the primer. I didn't even give them the book because I don't know about you. They don't ever read it. Like I got 3 people who will actually read the one book.
Excuse me for a minute. Jennifer,
in my experience, my whole life, nobody will read the book, but.
wait,
Jennifer,
the primer, people won't read the primer?
No, they won't read the actual gathered, like the Tangible Kingdom book, they won't read. But if I give them the primer, they'll do the study. But like, if you just give them a book, I'll never, I got 3 people who will read it. Nobody ever reads anything I give them. I don't know why.
Yeah, I will confess, I have a hard time getting people to read books.
Yeah.
So anyways.
But those are all good. Those are all good.
Yeah. Who was saying something?
Yeah, I was going to say, take the 2 words that seem to be primary in this last 90 minutes and put them together. And that would be authentic and the word community.
Yeah.
I find that that the be real factor when people come together, especially in times of any kind of crisis, that if the flavor of the group is authentic, it stays sticky. It starts and it stays sticky. And when people have the sense that they can be real about their fears and their concerns, it creates a teachable opportunity for the leader to bring the gospel into it, or to bring a verse of the moment into it. And I've been a small group pastor in large churches, and I've always found that the authentic community trumps anything with regards to the development of disciples.
Yep.
It starts with an intentional leader. And so anyway, I would just put those 2 words together rather than trying to make a programmatic thing out of them or launch a bunch of groups. Develop one authentic community that you and your husband are leading and pouring your lives into, and they in turn, they'll get a taste for. In fact, that's what Larry Osborne talks about in Sticky Church. Is keep it simple and be real. So anyway, thanks for listening.
That's a really good word, Bud. And I think Larry Osborne stuff, Bennett stuff, Matt Smay stuff, Mike Breen, everything we're talking about, even though they do it a little differently in terms of the being piece, they all say exactly what Bud just said, all of them. It's all about just authentically living out community. So I think you hit it on the head there, man. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very, very good. Very good. I'm going to bring up the last slide because, I made it and I want to make sure it gets seen. Can you guys see that now? Can everybody see that, or did it go away?
No, not yet.
All right. I must have done the wrong thing. Hold on. Oh, I got to share my screen again. Okay, hold on. Share
Yeah.
screen. Oh, it's going to make me start it over. That's okay. Share. Boom.
There you go.
There you go. So this is just me. That's the way my brain works. Here's how I would engage the pandemic post-bank thing now. Gather, when I say leaders, just gather the right people. You can decide, unless you're not the leader, in which case talk to your leader. But do an assessment. Assess how simple you are right now. Assess your online impact. Assess the emerging needs in your community. And then talk about the stabilizing elements you can lean into. Assess all of those. Develop a questionnaire. Do a SWOT analysis. There's lots of assessment tools. If you need any of those, get a hold of me. I didn't make them. I just have a million of those things. Come from like mostly the business world. Then flowing out of your assessment, make some short-term prioritized plans for like 3 months. You don't have to plan for 10 years right now. And then launch, and make sure when you launch, you build in mile markers, you build in assessment points to say, hey, after 1 month, after 2 months, after 3 months, we're going to assess these things and we're going to see how they're working. Are they being fruitful? Has anything changed? Has it opened up to the point where now it's a little more normal? That kind of stuff. And make sure you measure and adjust your fruitfulness. That's the major deal. By the way, Jen, I just was texting my brother. I know he pastors up in Longview, Washington. His church is about, 500 or something. He's been using sticky teams for 7 or 8 years. So I'll send you his info if you want to email me. He'd be a great real life resource if you were curious. He's pretty sharp, so he could probably help you too as far as somebody who's actually used it. I could tell you, I know he swears by it. He loves it. So cool. I'm going to pray for us, and then I'm going to go to my next thing. Lord, thanks so much for these people. Thanks for the ministries they represent. Thanks for Bud just speaking on behalf of the Holy Spirit there for us to bring everything to kind of a close, that it's just about being authentic in community, just living out real biblical community, Lord. And we may not always know exactly how to do that, but I think intuitively we know how to be that. So Lord, help us to be community, help us to be present in the lives of others, help us to call into community the exact right people that you would have us call at the exact right time. Help us, Lord, to exhibit great patience when, as leaders, and things just don't look the way maybe we want them to look, or the way we envisioned they could look at this point. So we just pray, God, that you would give us great wisdom and help us to always come back to this idea of authenticity and community, Lord. How can we have an authentic, Jesus-centered, biblical community in our midst? And we trust, Lord, that would be sticky, as Bud said, that like the church in Acts, Lord, people would just be in awe. They would see that and say, I want that kind of community, Lord. That is what we desire. That is what we want to see unfold for the sake of your kingdom, not our own little churches, Lord, but for the sake of your kingdom, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Awesome. You guys are awesome. Everyone thank Immaculate for hosting our group.
Thank you.
Thank David for wearing a new fitting shirt.